Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this evening's session. I am going to begin by simply saying at this point in time that I have no visible chat window anywhere close to me. So I'm going to beg you for your help in being a little more flexible and unmuting and speaking, like the good old days. And we'd have a nice interactive session as we proceed. Now, I know a lot of you all registered. I am not sure how many are in attendance at the moment, but we do have a packed, tight schedule this afternoon as we expand on yesterday's session. For those of you who attended, how the UE AI policy is now going to shape the way forward for research. That's how we are looking at things today. And of course, we're going to tease with a couple tools and how they could be applied throughout the research process. Now, this is not, and I'm going to repeat this, I said it in a session last year, this is not by any means a marketing session. So we are not the vendors for any of the tools that are going to be mentioned this afternoon. All we want all of our participants to be able to do is to leave with a higher level of AI literacy as far as research is concerned. So in line with that, at the end of today, we want to be able to focus our attention to be able to identify tools relevant to your own research workflow. Everybody approaches stuff differently. While we are talking, remember this is going to be heavily discussion based. Think about your own research context, your topics, your discipline. Think of how you normally approach things as we discuss the tools that we will feature. Think about how the policy is going to shape the workflow as we move forward. And as such, we're going to apply the tools in a manner consistent with the university's AI policy. We're going to evaluate the AI outputs, a couple of them. And of course, we're going to discuss the ethics. Ethics is always a big concern when we're using AI in scholarship. Now, why is that such a thing? I want you, as you read this slide, to think for a second, and I want you to unmute after a while and give me your thoughts on your position on using AI tools in the research process or your workflow. So the slide presents the modern dilemma. Now, the research is showing that we have more than 3 million articles being published a year. Now, I am a researcher, you're a researcher. The amount of time and effort that we have to put into a proper literature review, or before we even get to the review, to find the relevant literature, the correct sources, the correct voices, and being able to establish where gaps are in knowledge is quite a task. So then came along AI just after COVID, and here we are in 2026, and AI is doing more than a lot of us can do within 5 minutes. But there's now a trade-off. For me to access these 3 million plus articles, I could use AI, or I could go like the good old days, West Indiana, sit down and read, and I'm not going to have 3 million at my disposal. But you get the idea that what is the give and take? It's a term that we describe as cognitive offloading. And what we're speaking of with cognitive offloading is that we simply allow AI to be the driver and we sit in the back seat. And it's like if he says, hey, I'm making a left here instead of a right, we say, all right, you go ahead. Whatever it gives us, we decide we will just copy, paste, take it wholesale, as we would say in Trinidad. Now, the result of that is a term called metacognitive laziness or simple laziness. So while we have the tools that have been developed for our assistance, the risk exists that we become so reliant on the tool that we begin to get lazy. Metacognitive laziness. Can someone, feel free, anyone, what are your thoughts on this concept? Is this something that perhaps you have felt yourself experiencing, may not be in research, but general use of AI? What do you think? Remember, I cannot see a chat.
Okay, so Here from Mona.
Hi,
So,
welcome.
hi, thank you. So the 3+ million, that's a daunting figure, but I would say that in my direct area of expertise, I pretty much know who works on what, so I'm not that concerned there. But I become concerned when I want to broaden what I'm doing and go into areas that I'm a bit less familiar with. And then
Mhm.
I don't know who's doing, the work that people generally tend to refer to. What are the canonical references? And that is where I think the AI tools could be useful.
Great, I appreciate that. What's your name?
This is Sylvia Cohenberg, Mona,
Sylvia. Pleasure to have
linguistic.
you, Sylvia. You know, Sylvia,
Sylvia is good.
good. Just last year we had I would say an icebreaker or like a teaser of this session that kind of focused on the general areas of ethics and different concerns of using AI in research. And one of the things that came up was the fact that just what you discussed there about going into a field that we may not be too familiar with or going into something, let's say, interdisciplinary, is actually made easier to some extent when we use AI. So I'm very happy that you made that description for us. Anyone else? Experiences, thoughts, positions? Anyone else? Christine, let's hear from you.
Christine Descartes.
There you go, you're up already.
Yes, okay. Good afternoon, all. St.
Hi.
Augustine Behavioral Sciences.
Mm-hmm.
So just hearing the introduction on AI and how I've used, I think I have been very skeptical about AI, and I think it's because um, you check to see whether your students use AI for their projects, and you don't want to be because you're telling students how you should use AI. Maybe you could use it to explain things, but not use it in terms of verbatim and put it into your work. Some of those things make us, well, I could speak for myself, make me
Mm-hmm.
skeptical about AI. However, one of the things I've seen, because I do reviews for journals, have you used AI? And recently I saw that. Have you used AI to get some of the gaps of this paper? And I actually did not even think that was something persons could actually do, because I'm a bit of a skeptic. Very
Yeah,
skeptical. I'm a
yeah.
little apprehensive about it. Actually, recently I had to use AI in terms of using a different reference. I think I had to use. I usually use APA, and I think they were asking for Harvard, and so I just wanted to find, am I doing the right thing? And so I plugged it in, went in to use it, and I mean, voila, there it was. So I'm still learning a lot about
Yeah.
AI. Sometimes another thing I have done is meta-analysis when I want is, okay, how many studies have been or in the Caribbean on this particular topic? So I've used AI for those things. I'm still apprehensive, I'm still learning. Sometimes I'm not sure what exactly to put to get the exact, because I always see that it generates something that's a bit generic, and my colleagues tell me,
Yeah,
no, you just need to tell it what you want. So
yeah.
that's where I'm at with AI. Learning, and hopefully I'm looking forward to this session. Thank you.
Well, I hope I can meet your needs, but I'm happy to tell you that a lot of the points that you brought up are actually going to come in the second half of the session. So the point is, as you're saying, we may not be the expert in the use of AI, but the position that we want to have for AI is something more of a driver than being the passenger. So it's as if we are the shot caller. So yes, we might have a few prompts. We might learn how to do some proper context or prompt engineering. But then when we get the outputs, we are the ones able to verify it. And we want to use the time instead of digging, or perhaps that we have saved from the digging, to now engage in some higher order thinking in the research process. So that's where we're actually going. Now, if we look at this simple, interesting graphic, and I'm gonna here clearly state, as you can see in the bottom, let me get out of the way, of this slide, that this is an AI generated slide. So this is Notebook LM, and it gives an interesting graphic of the the same concept that we spoke about, that trade-off, that give and take that comes with using AI or over-reliance on AI. So as time passes in the chart, we're seeing that the aim should be to move from the passenger perspective of just taking, accepting whatever AI generates, and to becoming the driver, the one who is in charge, who actually validates and, has the full command over AI in whatever discipline. So it's just interesting to have that as our mindset moving forward. Now, we spoke about metacognitive laziness. Now, there is a constant productive struggle that we face in research. And it is based in Sweller's theory of cognitive load. What do you think, or let me ask, what do you think? For any of us here, what are your ideas on cognitive load, Sweller's theory? What does that point to what? Anyone? I know we have some psych, some eds. Cognitive load theory. We hinted to it in metacognitive laziness. And remember, I can't see the chat. I'm going to beg for your unmuting. Right? So the idea that we're going forth with is that we spoke about searching through 3 million things, articles. The effort that goes into that search, the brain function and capacity that goes into that search is something that requires a certain amount of engagement. Now, what we are saying is that we want to free our minds rather, from those tasks, from focusing on those tasks. So we're removing the burden, but we don't want to remove the factors that lead up to understanding. So, in that first part of the slide, it talks about bypassing the struggle. And it says when we automate the low-level tasks, we could risk bypassing the struggle required for intellectual growth. So again, we sit in the back seat and AI spits out this. We say, okay, here I am. I take it and I walk with it. But now, if I am a researcher, does that put me in charge or as an expert in my field? What do you think that does to my academic voice as that type of passenger researcher using AI? So you're seeing the concept of how AI, while it has its pluses, could have some serious risks. So the OECD, based on that, gives a clear warning. Yesterday, Dr. Hill in his session spoke about intent and use of AI with an intent, or very intentional. That is what we have to do to be able to avoid being the passenger and becoming metacognitively lazy. So let's move on a little bit. We don't want to lose the time for the group activities. And I'm telling you that we're going to need the group activities so that we could have an understanding, especially if we are graduate supervisors or research supervisors, or even in our own practice, of some of the things, the tools that we can use to make our lives easier or to assist our students throughout the process. So we're going to discuss just a quick paradox. So AI does make certain tasks faster and more accessible. Is that something we could agree on? I believe so, yeah? So it's not that we're questioning that, the speed and the accessibility of reaching all these articles. Yes, we'll give it that. But we are now looking at our own ability to master certain things. You think of a student using a calculator. I remember the good old days when we could not have a calculator in an exam. But then they allowed it. And gradually, we saw the case where some of our peers at the time became so reliant on the calculator that they were failing what we used to have, what was the name of the thing? Numbers, mental in school. So that loss of skill, again, is what we are trying our best to avoid. We are trying our best to avoid. We do not want to have a decline in our function, our cognitive stamina, and anything to do with that kind of capacity. Now, an interesting misconception is posted there on this slide. It says a major weakness of the AI era is that users treat eloquence as proof of truth. Any ideas on this? Any thought on this? Anyone? I think Christine kind of hinted it.
So that actually goes back to much older research, which shows that when texts contain errors, that readers are inclined to reject the text because they see the errors as proof of unreliability. So the flip side of that is that if a text is grammatically correct and, as you put it, eloquent, that readers don't question the source, that they think that this is now unproblematic. So this is already true of written text before the AI era, and this now extends into AI output.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that was Sylvia, right? If I got the voice correct. So thanks for that, Sylvia. Now, what we are looking at is that at the end of the day, we want to ensure that our students could recognize that not because something sounds good, and we have to say it in plain talk, bad manners to them, not because something sounds good does it mean it's true. So eloquence is not evidence, and fluency does not mean accuracy. Yeah, that's a bottom line that we want to have in our minds as we proceed. So remember, the point of today is to help us understand the policy and how it impacts our own practice, but it also has to have a trickle effect onto our own students, right? Everyone on board? Any questions before we move on? Great? No. Right, so we're going to look at simple guidelines, 4 simple guidelines now for the AI, what we'd call the AI augmented researcher. And I'm clearing the screen so that you could see the text. Now, simple things that look eloquent, perhaps, but it's the same things that we have been saying over and over. So as the AI augmented researcher, we want to be sure that everything that we do is verified. It is verified. So we just spoke about evidence not being the same as eloquence and fluency not meaning accuracy. But we want to test everything. Make sure that we could, sometimes we use AI for finding sources and literature. We want to make sure that this is not something Gen AI has produced and has hallucinated and created a source that doesn't exist. And we're going to keep repeating the principle as we move forward, that if we cannot identify a source, do not use it. Straight out, do not use it. And the second point, so we can't identify the source, don't use it. The second thing is, if we have some content that we would, in the back of our minds think that, I don't think I am comfortable with a peer reviewing this. If that is your stance, don't submit it either. It's simple as that. And of course, the second principle that we mentioned, we want to protect the struggle. Don't just let our brains go floppy and dead. We want to keep the thinking process going. So we want to be the driver and not the passenger. An interesting one is the third one, the fact that because Global North shapes the data fed into, or the output rather, of AI, we want to be mindful of certain inherent biases as we move forward. So if we're doing research in the Caribbean diaspora, be mindful of potential for bias based on what we search. And of course, again, point 4, you have to be the driver. Now let's look at a couple guardrails for research. We could refer to them as guardrails. And we want to be mindful that we're being guided by the UE policy as well as the UNESCO's guides for AI in education. Now, these are documents that we'd have the links for them in the package for you that you would receive as the registered participants. Based on the Question or that
David,
was a
sorry.
motion?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting, but could you go back to the previous slide, please? I think it might be worth
Augmented
doing,
researcher?
no, doing a deeper explanation of the second protect the struggle, retain ownership of the intellectual tasks
Yeah.
that build mastery, delegate mechanical tasks, never the thinking itself.
Yeah.
Because I think
But-
that's an excellent point, but I think it might be worthwhile to explain it a bit further
To go further. That's no problem.
Yeah.
So we're saying that this second point or second principle is the outcome of the two slides that we discussed earlier one on metacognitive laziness and one on using the concept of the cognitive struggle. And we are simply saying that in any human being, we have to be mindful that our brains are made to work. And just like any muscle, if we don't use it, we lose it. So the cognitive load theory tells us that our brain has, the different memories, types of memory, and how it uses it, the different parts for different functions. If we get in the habit of, okay, research question, ChatGPT, research limitations, Claude, research or first draft, ChatGPT, you could realize that not just are you losing your own voice, your own scholarly voice, or the concept of scholarship, at the same time, you are literally losing the cognitive ability of your mind, of your brain. So that is why the suggestion is that we delegate the mechanical tasks. And we're going to speak about some of these later on. Is that clear to everyone? Any questions again? Any questions? Everybody clear?
You'll give some examples later, Mark, of the
Yes,
mechanical,
definitely.
right? Thanks.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Lisa McDonald. I wanted to say something.
Hi, Lisa, sure.
I want to say that I started off very hands-off of AI, and I have decided that it's something that I need to embrace because regardless of what we do in UE, what happens afterwards is that the students have this as a tool that has to be used. So you have to
Yeah.
figure it out. And I have started utilizing it for certain things. And what I have found is that it almost becomes an addiction because before you were putting so much effort to create a quiz. Let's use that as an example. So much effort just to create a multiple choice quiz of 20 questions. And now you can give instructions to the AI and whoops, it's there. Within seconds, it is there. And then you start by going through it. And what I've also found with I think you call them hallucinations, is that if AI produces guidelines for 6 things, 5 of them correct, So if you start at number 1 or number 2 and then you're like, oh gosh, no, I think this is fine. And there is almost a feeling of I could take this. I don't have to verify it.
Yeah, you end up trusting too soon.
Yes, and this is me as a mature teacher. We're not even talking about a young student, you know what I mean? So there is this drive almost to use it more and more and to just take it at face value. I don't know if there's a way to address that, but I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Well, hopefully by the end of this session, we will be able to. We hope so. Now, we want to admit, of course, in the realm of AI, some of the older generations, we have to accept and realize that there is a thing called expertise reversal. So remember when smartphones came out, the younger ones used to teach their parents, and now we're seeing grandparents even using the cell phone. Even in the 80s, they WhatsApping more than me. Everybody has a status every morning, 4 or 5 different posts. But the point is that, as you said, Lisa, we we are in a position where we have to be very mindful of the stance that we take, because this is now going to be common, not going to be, is already commonplace. And I can tell you that even here locally, a lot of the agencies hiring in the private sector require candidates to be able to use AI. So it's not something that we should actually be closed-minded to, given that this is now a skill that persons are looking for. So under the UWI's framework, we're going to talk about the unauthorized use of AI, submitting AI-generated content and, claiming it as yours, outright academic misconduct. No two ways about it. Now, UNESCO says that we could use AI, but you have to protect human agency. So again, you have to be the driver. So it's not that the AI is telling you what to do. You are in charge. You have to guide the debate of the topic. I've seen persons use AI to tell them a topic, tell them a question, and if you're doing that, obviously you have no position in the matter. So that removes the concept of the scholarly approach.
And if I may, Mark, add
Yes,
to the
please.
point of when in computer science there is GIGO, and if your first stance is not one of quality, the output that you get will also be not quality. Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in,
A
garbage
simple thing. And so many of us may have very casual relationships or casual conversations with AI, and that in fact might be part of the problem, because if you're not having that complex conversation, then your output will be one that is not where it should be. I don't know if I'm going the right place, but it's certainly important for us to have that I don't want to use complex, maybe comprehensive, but many of us, you find a lot of persons having very, very casual parlance with those bot tools, and I cannot help but go back to Lisa's idea about the hallucination, and obviously we will get that.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Dr. Hill, and we're moving on a little bit to discuss a little bit more about the UWI's policy, right? So we're looking at what we have put as 5 guardrails for integrity. Number 1, we know the obvious, as we said already. If a student or if a researcher is submitting AI-generated work as original work, that is straight out academic misconduct. No questions about that. Another consideration or guardrail to keep us on the right path is the concept of data privacy. I might upload something to ChatGPT or one of them, and where does that information go? Suppose I am doing a current study into, let's see, it's lunchtime, the different zoning roti taste by geographic area in Trinidad. And I take this now and I upload data that might even have profit and loss values in it to get a quick analysis. You realize that that is now somebody's confidential data that they gave you to deepen your understanding of something, to come up with a solution that you have now exposed to the WWW. So we want to be mindful of that prohibited use of AI. Don't just throw things out there. And there's a very interesting prohibition from the supervisor-researcher relationship that we will discuss very soon. A third idea is, again, the focus on higher order thinking. We do not want the AI to replace the cognitive work, the muscle building. Christine, I think, mentioned the fact that she's now seeing transparency and disclosure statements in journals. And that is something that is now becoming accepted and is more and more popular. So it's almost like they're telling you, hey, we know you're going to use it. Tell us how you used it. We're going to get to it in more detail. And this last one I found very interesting. We're just going to touch on it now. Again, we're going to get into it. Process-based integrity. AI gives you an output. Always remember that. AI gives you an output. What the student, what the researcher has to focus on is the process of getting to the output. It's just like a long time in school. They tell you in maths, solve the equation, blah, blah, blah. But if you give the answer without the working, you have no grade. So we want to help students to focus on the process, and that's where we're going to find ways to prove integrity along the way. So let's look at point one. As we said, we could just recap this very quickly. The point of use in AI on the campus at the university is to be a research assistant. It is not to replace you. Yeah? If you have used it, you have to disclose it and acknowledge it. If you are submitting AI work, prohibited. You cannot claim the findings or the output of AI as your findings. All right? We want to be mindful of that. So, as we move forward, that bottom line, we want to keep as the reminder. The unauthorized use of AI tools, like any form of other academic dishonesty, undermines the integrity of the concept of scholarship. And of course, it brings the qualification that comes out of it into question. Everybody clear on that? Clear on that? So we could use AI to help think through a problem, but that is completely different from using AI to produce a solution. As in telling AI, give me the solution to so-and-so. That is what we want to understand, the concept of permitted versus prohibited. So research assistant versus letting AI write everything and saying that it is yours. Again, we're going to go into more examples. Data privacy and confidentiality. We want to be mindful. Prohibition. UE does not recommend using AI-based tools to verify whether students used AI in their work. How many people knew that? How many people knew that? And this is what I was referring to on a couple slides before when I said that there's an interesting relationship between supervisor and student that is going to come up here. Now, can anyone guess why is this a prohibition? I mean, you have a couple lines there explaining it. What are your thoughts on it? Do you see the risk in it? So the point is, if you, go ahead, whoever that is.
I just wanted, well, I'm not sure, that's the idea came,
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Henry,
Hi,
that
Stephen. Mm-hmm.
it was not stated that it will be done. I don't know. That's the thought came. So I don't know if it should be stated or the students should be aware that it will be done or may be done. I don't know.
Yeah. Any other ideas? Thanks for that, Stephen. I'm seeing a hand. I don't know who it is. Omar. Omar, you there? We're not hearing you if you're speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Is it taking into account the fact that we use the Turnitin, which has added the AI detection component?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of tools have AI detection, and I'm using air quotes AI detection for that. Be it Turnitin, be it the Zero GPTs. The point is that in itself consists of breach of student confidentiality. I'm seeing another hand.
Oh, hi. This is Risha Wise Mason from St. Augustine. I just thought it because you are uploading the student in their intellectual property, their work, you're uploading it to AI, which means that it is accessible or could be broadcast or used in their intellectual bank or whatever they use.
Exactly.
Make sense?
Exactly. So remember, this is just, I made the example of the roti prices and the profit and loss stuff that we upload, and it's a work in progress that should not be available. When we take the student stuff and run it through, first of all, as Stephen said, we have not got their permission. All right, so you can't get their permission. Secondly, as Rachel said, if this is something that contains private and confidential data, obviously that now meshes with the concept of what we've stated before, that we do not ever upload private and confidential sensitive material to AI.
Rachel and Alexia.
Alexia.
Sorry, let me lower my.
No problem.
Hi,
Alexia.
right. You can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, right. I think YUE is recommending that we don't use AI tools to verify whether the students' work is AI. I remembered a few years ago when ChatGPT just came out, that lecturer in a school at the US was actually challenged by the student, saying that you're using technology to prove whether my work is true or not, rather than assessing my writing styles prior to ChatGPT to, really verify if it's me or not. And so that could pose a financial challenge to UE. Because a student did fight back, like prove to me
Yeah.
that I actually use AI to write my paper. And the lecturer could only say that, well, I use it through Turnitin. And Turnitin, as we know, could give false positives at times.
Yeah, and that's not just Turnitin. Huh? Let's be mindful of that. Not just Turnitin gives you false positives. They all do. I had a very interesting experience the last 2 weeks where I was speaking with an actual secondary school teacher. And they are using detectors. And the problem was that the student wrote an exam, an essay in class, put it through the detector, and it failed. So the concept of false positives is not just limited to Turnitin. But the point is, as you said, we have to be mindful of, again, the concept of I'm seeing a hand, confidentiality. Dr. James, I'm told, I presume.
Yeah, so I am just expanding this point about Turnitin. So it's okay if the student puts his out, because Turnitin, there's the debate globally about Turnitin being an AI tool that you put your that you could put your assignment in, or put a student to verify whether plagiarism has taken place in a student's work, but it also will allow you to see the use of AI in that work. And there is that debate that is doing exactly what you just said we shouldn't do in terms of putting students' work through an AI program to verify it's the AI use in it. But Turnitin is doing exactly that. So then what really are we saying? And what I'm finding is that most tools, I'm sure most people who, you use Google emails and so on, you're using Google, you have some program that could even type your Google emails, that could type your responses, or that will summarize what a long email has for you so that you could go through things like that. So there are very few tools now that we have at our disposal, particularly as academics and people who do writing and creating, that do not have AI components embedded in them, whether realize or you don't realize.
Yeah, I agree with
because
that.
even the simple Microsoft that we use, the Microsoft 365 has AI embedded.
Of course.
So, what are we really saying? I would like to hear your position and the university's position on using the tool like Turnitin.
So what we are saying is that for us to use the tool, the student has to be aware.
Yeah.
First of all, the student must be aware that we are, or that they have now given consent for us to use the tool. Clear, crystal clear, that's the foundation of it. The second part is if the student, let's just say, is in a field where there is very sensitive data, that would be our second guiding principle.
So I will perhaps add to that, Mark, if I can.
Sure.
Freddie, they Turnitin as a tool within like our learning management system. The students must agree. And you will often, I don't know if you've seen it, but you'll often see options where students did not agree. And obviously it will flag it. That is in fact giving consent. So when a student actually submit work, they are actually giving consent, because if Turnitin engine is assigned to that, then when they use it for the first time, they will trigger that permission process, because obviously it's a legal case, because the tool is designed to do what it's designed to do. And so from that standpoint, a lot of persons don't understand that, because they think obviously that it's a tool, but students, when they use it, they are actually given permission that their work will be analyzed and scrutinized from that standpoint.
And
so
therefore, sorry, but similarly, Dr. Hill, when the student does not give that permission, what then is the option left to the lecturer in terms of examining that particular assignment and ascribing a mark that is fair to the student? You see the issues that I'm saying, things are churning up, and I believe the university has to come to a place where policy would guide lecturers on instructors on all these various matters, because there are many gaps that I am seeing that are not accountable. And to me, it's simply because, the policy isn't laid out in that very clear way that takes into consideration all of those things. Because so if you feel as a lecturer, the student doesn't give permission, they didn't pass their thing through Turnitin, they submit, you read the thing and you realize, well, I do think based on my interaction with the student could have produced this work. You can't fail it, because the student could then take you to court on that basis. So what are the provisions the university is making to address these gaps? Sorry.
I know. I think the whole idea of awareness is important, Freddie, the idea of drawing that awareness, because there are some institutions that very, very, the philosophical stand, they don't use Turnitin, because they really want to ensure that human agency remains central in detecting. And how did we detect other person's work being not their work before? And so I think this is a clear discussion that we need to continue, that dialogue that we need to continue to have. Are we giving our students choices because they have a legal right not to accept the disclaimer that is attached to Turnitin when they're submitting the assignments? So I think from our academic, and I do know that we're working on the academic integrity policies, I think it's something that is that's included in that conversation. All right, so that should be coming, folks. But in terms of the AI, since that now Turnitin has the AI detection aligned, we are seeing those discussions obviously being married, but we certainly recognize the need to raise awareness around not just the privacy and the consent, but also the legality of all those different things.
So folks, I just want to say something before we move forward. One thing that is going to happen from this session, as I told some of my colleagues here, is that there's going to be a lot of eyebrow raising, a lot of questions being asked. What we want, though, is to keep some of those questions to build on policy. Policy keeps evolving. keep some of the questions so that, as Dr. Hill said, it could lead to discussion that could further refine policy. In the interest of time, though, we want to move forward to guardrail number 3. We've discussed it. We don't need to go into depth. The concept of simply not copy and pasting. Do not switch out the AI for your own brain. Allow your brain to work, the cognitive struggle. So here are some things that we could implement. So as we said earlier, AI generates output. We are looking at process. Perhaps we could allow a student, depending on how many of them we're supervising, to give an oral, some sense of an oral feedback or oral assessment of a certain stage of the research process, so that they would have to know what they're speaking of. Even if they did use AI, at least if you are now allowing them to speak freely, away from anything, perhaps one-on-one, that you could now be the gauge of determining whether learning took place. You want to probably encourage journaling, reflective annotations, and as we said, staggered submissions. And again, including those oral sections of it. A fourth guardrail is transparency and disclosure. We're going back to what Christine said earlier about the concept of having these statements. So look at the example statement for the acknowledgement. ChatGPT was used to generate an initial list of keywords, which were then refined by the author. So it allows you to own the fact that you've used AI, but it also tells the reader how you have used the AI. The transparency statement, the following AI tools were used in the work. You list the tool, you list the purpose, and you list at what stage. And we're going to see exactly where this should sit. Because if we think of it, we do research and we use tools for data analysis like Stata, R, Tableau, SPSS, and we always put in the methods that these were the tools I used, the version of the tool. This is what was used to analyze the quantitative data, and I used this to analyze qualitative data, also be the case. It's the same statement that we are looking at for the use of AI, which should be in the methods. And as we said in guardrail number 5, we're looking at process-based integrity. So have evidence of the process. Did learning take place? Do they have that oral defense? Are they able to present on it, to speak, to really show that they have a voice and a mind that's being used in the research process, and journaling, so forth. So just some quick takeaways from this section. If we were to call this a summary slide of what we discussed so far, 3 things that we're looking at: a transparency statement or an accountability statement that we spoke about, how you've used it. It's going to be shown on the slide to come, that we must disclose which tools were used for what and at what point. We want to be mindful of the data security concerns. So we don't just upload, we don't do it. If it is a student and supervisor relationship, we don't do it without their permission. And of course, the concept of false positives. Richard?
Hi, good afternoon all.
Hi.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to backtrack a bit to the question I raised, the second question I raised yesterday. For those who weren't here, I asked about the use of now PDFs are now offering the service of summary or summarizing documents. And I have also indicated yesterday that it seems as though some databases, journal databases, full text, when you get the PDF, there is an AI research assistant that is offering the service of summarizing the document as well. So you mentioned, Javed, you mentioned the question of accountability, or at least declaring what you actually used AI for. I'm just asking the obvious. Does it mean that we must also include whether we have used the AI research assistant for the summary of articles that we located.
Thanks for that, Richard. So yeah, simple answer to that. As we just stated, if you've used it, you're stating what you used, where you used it, for what purpose. And we're going to see that summarizing is, yes, a task that is included in this. Now, we want to move forward. We've discussed the policy and how it leans to the guiding research with the different guardrails. We want to discuss something that was proposed by an author last year. Now, we know of another craft framework. It's not the one that's on the screen. This was, let me see if I could get this name correct, proposed by an author, Dang Prasert. That's it, in 2025. And what she is saying is that there are these 5 stages that exist within the concept of literature collection and literature review where AI could be used. And she actually conducted an interesting study where she was able to show that with the researchers interviewed, time was obviously saved, but there was also an increase in their obvious productivity. So those craft elements, simple acronym, collecting, reviewing, analyzing, framing, and tailoring, are the 5 stages that she puts for the literature review. And quite easily, you could see some of the tools that she herself suggested for each stage based on what researchers were already doing. So the collecting aspect of gathering the first idea, where am I going with this? What is it that I'm actually looking to investigate? What keywords might be needed? She says that the researchers were using SciSpace and Google Scholar. Everybody we know for sure is familiar with Google Scholar. It's commonplace. Now, the pitfall, again, is allowing AI to take the reins and define our own research scope. And that is something we never want to happen. The research question is ours and not AI's. In reviewing, where we actually do the digging of the different databases that we're looking through, as we said, you're going West Indiana and so forth, we're looking at things like Semantic Scholar. Now, there are AI tools such as Research Rabbit, that's the RR, Connected Papers, Kenius, that actually use Semantic Scholar as the database of choice, and again, Google Scholar. So AI's role is simply to match the keywords and the themes with the actual papers that exist. Your role as the human is to make judgments about the quality of the work, the relevance of the work to your topic, to your discipline. In analyzing, again, we're going back to the cognitive struggle. We want to ensure that critical thinking takes place, that we actually not just telling AI, tell me the themes, that we could figure out from the themes the kind of person or the population that we're dealing with. Mendeley, Quillbot, those are just 2 that she suggested. There are many more, and we're going to come to some of them in a little bit. Framing for integration, information integration, Mendeley and Zotero. Tailoring, which is the one we want to be very mindful of, where persons, paraphrase, copy and paste very easily. We want to ensure that the output meets the standards of clarity, accuracy, integrity, and most of all, originality. So the human role is to exercise the final judgment in terms of editing. This is not about copy and pasting, as we discussed already. So why does craft matter? That craft framework that she postulated, why does it matter? I like the fact, the second one to the top, that unlike tools that just summarize, the craft is a pedagogical model. And that simply, it means it prepares scholars for the full complexity of academic and professional inquiry. So we spoke earlier about John Sweller's theory about cognitive load. And this is what we're coming back to. This is exactly what we are coming back to. So strategic offloading, same thing. The AI is doing the low-level tasks. We're keeping the time for the thinking, the analysis, the evaluation, and the synthesis of what we have discovered. Integrity is the priority. We spoke about this. So no violations of academic integrity, no copy and pasting, no thinking that the AI's output is suddenly your findings. That is not the case. And of course, the human in the loop, remember that you are the researcher, AI is the assistant. Yeah? So a quick summary here. A quick summary here now of the 5 stages, some of the tools that were found in that study that were useful throughout the stages. And remember, these stages were specific to literature review, gathering, everything. She has not yet reached to the actual data analysis. So she's analyzing literature here, not the data. And we have each of the functions and the different role now that the researcher should have. And we're seeing in the roles, I want you to look at column 4, researchers check. And I want you to see how the higher order thinking is coming in here, right? Look at the second one in reviewing. Do the results meet inclusion criteria? Is the search strategy documented? The third, have I independently verified the themes? Do interpretations hold from my context? So you are being the one in charge. You are protecting your own scholarly voice. That is the end game of craft. And that's why we are saying craft is not just a technical tool. It is a pedagogical approach to using AI throughout the research process of simply collecting literature and gathering the necessary direction for our topic, our scope, and so forth. We're going to dive a little bit, and I'm using AI words here now, dive, into some of the different tools that we could use for citations and discovery. Before we go ahead, any questions? Actually, you know what? Let's hold the questions for now because we have an activity coming up where you all could ask each other the questions. We're looking at 3 different tools here. Research Rabbit, Litmaps, Connected Papers. I think I could see a raised hand. Quick raise hands. Any of these look familiar? Or maybe I should ask the reverse of that, boy. Give me a quick raise hand if any of these 3 are something that you know of. Anyone? Or maybe I'm not seeing the raise hand from where
Not familiar at all.
Not familiar. Yeah, thanks for that, Sylvia. Now, Research Rabbit and Connected Papers, I can tell you these are 2 things I use a lot. Connected Papers gives you a visual lay of the land, as it were. For those of you who subscribe to our channel, you'd have heard us discuss these 2 in a prior session for PodClass. These tools, remember, are relying on Semantic Scholar. So let's say I am researching student evaluation of teaching. When I begin searching in Connected Papers, for example, I type in my topic. So yes, the broad topic is student evaluation of teaching. But perhaps I am looking at some of the determining factors into a student completing an evaluation of their lecture or course. And I put that as my prompt in Connected Papers or in the search bar. We're going to use very basic language. We put that in our search bar in Connected Papers. Connected Papers is now going to go through the database of Semantic Scholar. And it's going to give you a list of articles, just as Google Scholar would. You click on one of those articles, and what Connected Papers does, which I love, is it gives you that visual map of how each article is connected to all pretty much within the field, and it's kind of gauged on the number of citations. Now we know that this could propagate the idea of the mass cited being cited further. But what it shows you is not only the big guys, the big voices, but it gives you a variation in the map as to how many times a related article, author, or voice has been cited throughout the topic that you're looking at. What that does for me is that actually puts me in the direction, because I'm probably familiar with the field, and of course you would be discipline specific, you would know exactly what you're going for. As Sylvia said at the outset, who are the voices that you know of? This also helps in interdisciplinary research, because there are voices that we don't know of, but Connected Papers is now going to highlight those voices that are either big or small. And it's going to be visual, just like how we described it. So picture a chart, and we're going to, I did not put a slide with it because we're going to mess around with it. Picture a chart with nodes connected to each other. The bigger the node, the more frequently the author has been cited or the work has been cited. Research Rabbit is quite similar. So we're looking at tools here now. If you notice, they are covering the first two stages of the CRAFT framework. So we are collecting and reviewing at this stage. You get the idea of how the tool is being intentionally used? So Connected Papers, Research Rabbit, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you are Googling it as we are discussing it, and we hope that that is happening. So a quick summary of the AI tools and some of the uses. In this table, we see a quick tool matching function and best use case. So we spoke about the C and the R of the CRAFT, and we're looking at finding what it calls orphan studies and field evolution. This is Notebook LM again, responsible for this slide. Orphan studies simply meaning who have shaped the voices and the stances moving on. And then it speaks of consensus and cite. These now, the function is for discourse categorization. So we're able to verify the claim and replicate, or check rather, the replication status. Is this something that I could use? And the last one, the core function of data structuring, we're using Elicit and Semantic Scholar. Folks, if you are writing down these tools, please do. If you want to take a screenshot, please do. Remember, the recording will be made available as well. We are going to tamper with some of them a bit. And right now we're going to do this. So I'm begging you, we know we've seen it. We see it in our students. When group work comes, they switch off. And the sad part is that happens with faculty too. But we are asking, please, to engage in each of the group activities this evening. Activity number 1, we're breaking into 7 different groups. And I want you, I said I was going to assign you a paper, but I want one person or a group consensus very quickly in the group work. Come up with a topic, use Research Rabbit or Connected Papers. If you want to use any of the others that we've mentioned, fine. Explore the citation network around the core or the seed paper. And I want you to be able to identify one foundational parent or prior art paper and a research gap on orphan study. So remember, we're approaching this with intentionality. So take a screenshot of the slide as you go into your groups. It is for your benefit. We are asking, please, stick around for the group work. Engage in the groups. You have 10 minutes. The idea, when we come back, what did you find that a keyword search alone would not have revealed? Everybody ready? We begin the breakout rooms now. So 10 minutes. So we come back at 2:18. Great, and we are back. So very quickly, I'm just going to call breakout room 3. What was your experience?
Hi,
want-
that was us. Renelle, do you mind putting it up on the screen? We will be in breakout room 3.
Good. One question. Was it messy?
Actually, no. So none of us had the prior experience using it. So it was actually user-friendly. Follow the instruction, enter keyword, click search, build graph, etc. Choose a journal to start with. But we felt that it gave some more information on the journal to help you decide on a starting point relative to what you had put in. And the visuals really help us see that network, that interconnection. And we could see the bigger nodes, as you said, and then those that were a little bit distant and not as many connections. We were able to see what may be seminal works versus what may be more recent works. And we think that this could be really useful. And of course, the number of citations before we generated the graph also was useful information. This was, we thought, really helpful in guiding us now as we go to do the literature search rather than a linear generated list of possible journals that we would check. Did I capture everything, room 3?
That's
was
pretty
there anything else?
comprehensive.
Okay, all right.
And we appreciate
One more
that.
thing.
Yes,
One
please.
more thing. One more thing we saw was we believe that college 2017 was an orphan because it was standing alone, small, and the connection wasn't as many as the others. That one and Fatima 2018. Had very few, so we felt they looked like orphans.
Okay, nice. Thank you for that, group 3. Could we hear from another group that did not use connected papers? Anyone used Consensus, Elicit, Research Rabbit? I was in one group where Research Rabbit was asking you to subscribe. Anyone else had a different experience? Very quickly. Group 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Group 4, we did Research Rabbit, and well, actually, that's the group that we had to. It was asking for the subscription. Right. And we got a very useful piece of advice to create a separate email account for all these things, so that you don't get spammed and you know and your stuff doesn't go out into the world. I thought that was good advice for me personally, because I tend to use my actual email, and then I realized maybe that's not a good idea. What I saw in what came up was the link to the references and also similar papers, which you know how many similar papers to the main theme, and then we also identified what looked like a paper that seemed to be a little bit off the main core theme, sort of standalone, which I thought was very helpful. We didn't get to the point to actually get to the off, you know, to the forward search or foreign appearance, and so but we did see, just looking at one paper, the connections and the similarity between some of those papers. And what I personally found interesting was the fact that, you know, that paper that seemed a little bit off, that might give some ideas for work that could be built on as an emerging theme. Let me put it that way. Something that would be, you know, maybe a research gap, and we could probably zero in on that. So that was my takeaway using Research Rabbit. So it's something I'll have to explore in a lot more detail to actually, and probably have to pay for if I want to get all the functionality.
No, you shouldn't have to. I don't know what the current terms are, but I had signed up for it before it was free. I still have a lot of leeway in it, yeah? So it's just probably to explore. But I'm really appreciative of what you described there in your experience of seeing it, showing you possible research gaps. So we are seeing in the first 2 stages of the craft framework how some of the tools could help us in that collecting and reviewing aspect. Now we're going to look at the analyzing and framing section of that craft framework for literature collections and reviews. And we have some tools cited here. Well, not cited, but here we have Cite, Consensus, Elicit, and Semantic Scholar. Now, full disclosure, I love Elicit and Consensus. We use Semantic Scholar, yes, but the two, Consensus and Elicit, to me, give me a broader picture. I want you to write them down, take note of them, remember them, mess around with them. Why I like Consensus is because there's a thing in Consensus, when you, same way as you did in Connected Papers and Research Rabbit, when you search an article, there is a consensus meter on the group of articles that it produces. So it kind of tells you where the voices sit in relation to each other. So imagine you as the researcher doing the gathering, how helpful that kind of meter is going to be in pointing you in a certain direction. Of course, remember that you are not forced into that direction because you are the driver and the dictator of your scope, your question, and your purpose. Your scholarly voice is yours. Elicit now pulls again from the Semantic Scholar database and gives you a comparison of the literature in a table, pretty much. To some extent, it summarizes some of the work very quickly, but it gives you a very quick, it's to me another visual representation. Just as Connected Papers gave us the graph, Elicit is giving us a table. Cite does similar. It shows us how the paper was cited, where's the contrasting going, and that kind of thing. And we know Semantic Scholar, it's now really and truly compare it to Google Scholar, and you'll see why it is that the AI tools are becoming more popular. Google Scholar is just going to give you the pages of resources. These tools are using the same networks. You realize, I think you would safely say that there's very little hallucinating, if any, with these tools because they are using the databases. So that is why it is, as we said earlier, as Dang Prasad said, it is a time saver. We are going now into a quick second group activity. So you're going back in your same rooms, right, people? Second activity, we're going to look at prompt engineering for research. So you have a research question in your head. You have leeway as the groups, 1 to 7. Come up with your question. If you want to build on what you've already done, let's run with it. Now, we want to use the driver approach. So we want to be responsible for everything. So give it the context, give it the task, give it the instruction, clarify those commands, and refine as need be. I want you to compare your outputs. So first, be the dummy, be the backseat passenger. Just give it a random question, and then do the same in the second approach. But you are now taking your question and you are giving the AI tool the context for your discipline. So instead of, I don't want to give too much away. Let's go back to student evaluation of teaching. Instead of saying, what are the best practices in student evaluation of teaching? My context might be, you are an institutional research analyst. It is now the end of the academic year. Please help the team, the research team, to decide on the way forward in evaluating the student experience at the campus for the last year. And you give it more information, of course, no personal information, no identifiers. See what it gives you, clarify it, refine it, and go again. When we come back, the question that we're answering, based on your experience, at what point do you think that we could probably stop the use of the AI in the process? So based on your experience, take a screenshot of the screen. Where would it be inappropriate to delegate the work to the AI? So comparing passenger versus driver. You can use for this group activity any of the tools that you used, or you can use the generic Gen AIs, the ChatGPT, the Claude, Gemini, any of those. The ball is in your court. All right, so we're going now. The rooms are open. We come back at 2:34. Nope, 2:40. Let's do this very quickly. Right, so let's go. Group, I'm calling random here. 2, what was your experience? Contrasting driver and passenger.
So basically, we found that we needed to be a little bit more specific with our topic, even if we are in the driver position, or or even if you were in the passenger, whichever position you were in, the more specific you were, the better response you would get. So like at the closure of our breakout room, someone mentioned, it would be helpful to define who you are exactly. Yeah, so that the output, as Dr. Hill mentioned earlier, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
So we
Right,
found
so-
that the thinking was critical at that point in identifying your prompts. So that
Right.
was the key learning.
Good, good. So the takeaway is intentionality again and specificity.
Correct.
Nice. Did you find a point where you thought it was now going to be borderline inappropriate use? Or did you not reach there yet?
Well, I mean, I know the entire focus for us is to get us to think critically, students, and we found that it would be wise to engage the process throughout, but always verifying and checking. So as you
Love
said, the AI is an assistant so that you can think of the crucial questions to ask and then verify any output that is produced by the AI. Yeah?
Right. Lovely. Nice. Group 7. Let's hear your experience. Group 7. Anyone? Group 7, you're alive.
Hi, afternoon. I believe we were group 7. So, yes, similar to the last group that spoke, when we outlined the question initially, it gave us broad information. And then, well, we still needed a little bit more time, but when we added the specifics in terms of the discipline, it did allow for more refinement in the information. I do take the point in terms of double checking and verifying the information, but it gave you a good starting point, at least somewhere that you maybe have spent a lot of time brainstorming or trying to figure out what it is you may have wanted to include. We didn't get much further than that, but the next thing we were going to define were the additional sections to help refine it. But we did see the point where, as we added more specifics and refined the information, it got us closer to where we wanted to be. So as you said, we became the driver in terms of the development of the activity that we were working on.
Nice, nice. Thanks for the experience. So the point is, y'all, that we're seeing some of the gains, but we're seeing the risk, and that's the point of the group work, right? So we're seeing the experience so that we would know what these students of ours are doing, what their experience is like, and how we can help them. Remember, this is a skill that is now required in the workplace. So we looked at the craft for literature collection. What about data analysis? Could we have, one sec, could we have some info on data analysis? And now somebody brought the chat to me, so I have to read the chat. From group 1. As a passenger, we found that the AI made assumptions that were unwarranted. The driver approach yielded a much more sophisticated response, which included some references to published work. but we lack the time for detailed comparison. Great, thanks for that. Thanks for giving us a quick summary. And again, we know that the time is going to be a factor. And all we are saying is that this workshop is to introduce us to these tools that we can now critically evaluate as we move forward. And we're going to dig up in a few more now. Quick question, show of hands. Did anyone know Excel has a built-in AI tool? Thumbs up if you knew. Thumbs up if you knew. Great, good. So apart from Excel, however, there are other tools that researchers could use for coding of qualitative data. There are tools that we could use for analysis of quantitative data. Some of these tools, which you all would be very familiar with, I'm sure, NVivo, we spoke about Excel, Smart PLS, MaxQDA, I've used that one. And did you know that Claude could actually be used for data analysis? I've heard some persons report that they've used ChatGPT and Gemini, but based on my experience, I would stick with these that I've put on the screen here. The point is, as we mentioned in one of the very early slides, although we might ask the AI to go into the examination of the qualitative data to establish themes throughout, we are the ones who need to be able to synthesize the data. So we need to know what is the theme actually saying about the population or the strata of the population. So let's take a quick play again. Let's see how quickly we could do this. Less than 10 minutes we have this time. You have those tools that we mentioned before. If it is easier for you and you don't have already signed up NVivo, MaxQDA, or Smart PLS, let us try with Excel. And I'm going to guide you one time. If you are using Excel, you are going at the top right of the toolbar where you have that sort and filter icon, the funnel. To the right of that, you would see Excel AI. If it is not there, it simply means that you have to update a newer version of Excel. However, also be informed that Excel allows for adding. So you also can include Claude and others into Excel itself. So here's a good joke. This morning we did some quick research. We interviewed 75 persons in the surrounding area of the university, trying to determine their views on Trinidad street food. And we got 75 full responses, which was shocking. What we are doing now is placing these 75 responses in the chat as an Excel spreadsheet. I want you to take those responses, upload it into one of the tools of your choice. If you have NVivo, MaxQDA, Smart PLS, fine. If you don't, use ChatGPT, use Gemini, use Claude AI. See if you can get the AI to run the thematic approach. You could use different approaches of thematic analysis. Whichever one you do, run it through. We have 7 minutes. You're going back into the same rooms. And tell us what you think on your return. So we begin breakout rooms now. Right, and we are back. How was it? How was it? Any group, you go ahead. Give us your experience. What you learn about Trini street food from the population? What did the people say?
Hi, I'm 5. We are group 5, and if I share the screen, we put it through Claude.
Nice. Please do.
Well, it came up with 6 themes, and 6 interesting themes, mind you. the theater of preparation, transparency, and spectacles. Interesting names. This was the single most frequently mentioned idea. And it gives you a sub-themes and the representative quotes, right? Performance and spectacle. You watch them pour the bara, fill it, sauce it. It is theater, you know?
Yeah.
And and then it gives you an analytical interpretation, the metaphor of, well, there's a paid prescription for Claude, right? So it will give you some more than just
more detail, correct.
Yeah. The metaphor of theater recurred verbatim across multiple responses, suggesting a shared cultural framing. The open kitchen is not merely practical, it produces a sense of ritual, trust, and co-creation. So, you know, and then it gives you, well, it gives you that for each of the themes.
Yeah.
And then it gives you the thematic map summary. And then it also then gives you the theme frequency and the distribution. So for each theme, it tells you approximate frequency, how many people, and then the percentage of the population, and that kind of thing. And then it writes the key, you know, something on the key findings and conclusions. So it's a proper report, Street food is understood as far more than food. Across 79 responses, not a single one framed street food in purely nutritional or functional terms. It is consistently understood as culture, identity, memory, theater, and community. And, you know, I'm just thinking, when you get, you know, this depth of analysis that you get, you know, you would... you know, what you do when, you know, a student produces a paper for you with this, what would your mind immediately think, you know? Because this goes into a greater depth of analysis, I think, than what you would see your students, even your master's students.
Correct.
So I'll stop sharing now because I know time is of the essence. That was good.
Yeah, but thank you so much for that. I think we can all deduce from it again, the gains and the potential for risk. That's the one thing we know for sure. I think if you were actually to read through the 75 responses, you would notice that in doing the analysis, it actually would not hallucinate. For anybody who used Notebook LM in particular, you would note that. Now, Notebook LM is one that we have not highlighted so far. And again, please, folks, remember this is not a marketing campaign for specific tools, right? We are just trying to become more AI literate. Notebook LM only uses what's the sources that you upload to Notebook LM. So if you give it a data set, if you give it, let's say, what's that, the Box and Clark model for thematic analysis, if you give it an article on that to guide it, it's going to do exactly that. So know that there are tools that would not hallucinate with the data. Now, funny pop quiz, not pop quiz, but fun fact. 75 responses were 75 AI-generated responses. Simple example of how we could use AI not just in research, but also in assessment. Yeah, for a quick use in the classroom. Now, we've been able to...
May I ask a question, please?
Sure. Who is this speaking? I don't see.
Alicia. Yes.
I was wondering, it was really fascinating to see what happened as our colleague shared, you know. I was wondering if the scope of the content uploaded to the AI could impact the depth of the analysis. I don't know what is your experience and if you can enlighten us on that.
So that is a definite yes. And that's what Dr. Hill mentioned earlier, garbage in, garbage out. But if you put something that is driver approached and you do that concept of you give it a prompt, but you keep refining the prompt, and you could actually use not the craft framework that we use for the AI in research and literature reviewing, but the craft framework for prompt engineering. That one is very interesting because you keep up in your game, so to speak, and you give it less and less and less garbage, which is the key thing. That's the key thing. So Petra says, what do the students do with the analysis generated by Claude, paraphrase and resubmit? How ethical is that? So that in itself is another discussion because we're now stepping into assessment and the use of AI. And we are looking out for you all tomorrow for that discussion in tomorrow's session. Before we wrap up this evening, though, we just want to summarize. We've discussed the UE policy. We've shown how the UNESCO guiding document also helps, how some of the frameworks have helped in using AI in research. The obvious things that we want to be mindful of, we spoke about bias. The AI is trained not on our data, but on Greater North, Global North data. We know that some of them hallucinate. So if you are the researcher using it, or if your student is using it, you're allowed to use, ensure that you teach the student to be a driver, to check through the DOIs, to check through the articles, to actually read. There's a big difference between allowing the AI to gather and then summarizing, than allowing the AI to gather and you read, which is what we want the student to be proficient in doing. Saving the time from the gathering, the lower order task of gathering, and going into the higher task of reading, analyzing, synthesizing. So some tools for different stages: ideation, CoQuest, HyperWrite. We spoke about HeyGen some time ago. That's kind of dated now. We have the Gen AI models. We have Mindshift. I think I'm one slide ahead of you all. Right.
No, you're not. Well, I had a question before you leave, because a colleague and I were talking about this.
Sure.
If you use AI in your to create your examinations, your rubric or whatever, should you acknowledge that on the exam paper, a final exam paper?
I want to answer you, but I feel I'll be rubbing you off tomorrow. Honestly. Honestly. Because tomorrow, I'm really trying to keep today to research. Tomorrow is about curriculum design assessment. And I don't know if you could make it tomorrow, Dr. James, but I would prefer to have that answered then, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, it's more for a colleague than me, but I am trying to come to all these sessions.
That's
I
no
am
problem.
asking for a friend because I know what the response is going to be.
Well,
but,
here's what. In the interest of time,
as we were talking about it today.
I understand, but it's not just a yes/no question, because you would need more than a yes/no for the friend.
Yeah, so, that's fine. That's fine.
So I know you're always in touch, so hit me an email or anything like that, and we respond.
Ma,
so again,
hi.
Yes,
One more question. So when you're doing your interviews for research, you have your ethics and your confidentiality.
Lovely.
So when you get that interview, how do you breach that confidentiality? By uploading the whole interview on AI to do a theme?
Right. So in your design, your research design, you have to identify if you're going to use it. If you know you are going to use it, this means that how we have uploaded 75 responses, our 75 responses cannot be tied to individual 1, 2 to 75. There's zero identifying information. All we have done was taken the raw response without any identifiers. So the respondent info is not there.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
So for quick reference, as we were saying, we have just a quick summary table of some of the tools for the different stages. So stages, ideation to discovery, extraction, and so forth. We have the tools there. There are some that we have discussed that are not listed there, and vice versa. What we are encouraging, as we said earlier, is to familiarize ourselves with them as far as is possible. We are not saying just give in to AI. I appreciate the different positions and the cautious approach to it. But the reality is it's going nowhere and it's upscaling itself. So we need to upscale or upskill as we proceed with it. apart from the tools, ethical concerns, just to wrap up. So we have our framework with our guardrails. The ethical concerns now about integrity, remember, no copying and pasting. That is outright breach of academic integrity. For hallucinations, fluency is not accuracy. Eloquency does not mean it's true. Remember the biases that are inherent. Also remember, for data privacy and confidentiality, do not upload a student's work without their permission. And if you are doing your research, do not upload information that has sensitive data or any identifying information. Now, of course, think of the approvals from the ethics committee and your informed consent that would preface your survey. Lastly, folks, beware of the same thing we've been singing over and over, metacognitive laziness or intellectual erosion. Don't rely on it. You are the driver. Where are we going? We have to be the master. Yes, this is the age of AI, but we have to be the master of AI. We would use it and don't be used by it. We are the researcher. It is the research assistant. We hope, folks, that the information was useful. We look forward to more sessions that go further into actual use of the tools or in longer time spans per se. But we hope that it does generate critical debate and thinking and considerations as we continue to improve things in practice. It was a pleasure having you all. Please note before you leave, we are asking if you are using a generic named device, we are asking that you please rename yourself very quickly so at least we would have a name for our records and for any certificates. Also, please note that Mr. Duku has placed in the chat our short experience survey. We need to hear from you to know, I need to hear from you to know what I could cut, trim, add, and so forth to improve this session. We appreciate your presence. We look forward to those of you who may join us tomorrow for tomorrow's session on AI in assessment and curriculum design. Please, folks, also stay tuned. Coming up soon, it's going to be a very different faculty cafe on April the 16th. Very, very different. And we are inviting you all. Please go visit our website, look under our upcoming events and workshops. Faculty Cafe, save the date, April 16th, 1 p.m. right here on the ground floor of the TLC building. We look forward to having you. And for those of you who have not subscribed to our channels, our social media, please follow, because all of this content will be uploaded in different formats. Again, thank you all. We enjoyed having you, and you all enjoy the evening. We look forward to seeing who may attend tomorrow. And Dr. James, I'm looking out for your email.
No, I don't need to send an email. I mean, I know the answer to the question, but I just wanted to find out, because what we're finding is that when you think, not to make assumptions that everybody knows. So you engage in conversation and engage in dialogue, and through that, you know, more knowledge sharing takes place.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing.
Yes, thank you. We're going toward AI literacy. We're going to there.
Yeah. But this was fantastic, like yesterday. Excellent sessions.
Ah, great. I'm happy.
And I'm encouraging my colleagues, you know, to come out.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. And remember, I think in the position you sit, Dr. James, if it's something that you would like us to do for your department, remember that's something you could request.
Oh, we've asked for the faculty. Dr. Hill knows. I've already sorted that out. Dr. Hill.
Great.
We have. It's on
long
the plate.
before
It's on the
this,
burner.
but that's why I am asking, I'm encouraging people to come so that they would, as a precursor to what we would do, a deeper dive in at the faculty level. Yeah, we've already sent out that proposal.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we'll cross out what we've done.
No, because I am registering the persons who have been coming from my faculty, not for any other reason than to realize that we really need to do it in the faculty. Yesterday we had quite a few, but today we didn't. So we really need to do it. That's why I'm trying to come to the sessions too. So, you know, I'll know what content was captured and so on.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue the conversation in email.
Yes. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Everyone have a pleasant evening. And we'll stop the recording now.